Yo, what just happened yesterday completely changes everything for Bitcoin in 2025 and potentially confirms the path to $5 million Bitcoin. While everybody was distracted waiting for Trump's executive order, something far more quietly happened in the background. And what are those three things? Because three things needed to happen. Three things needed to happen, according to Saylor, for Bitcoin to reach $5 million per Bitcoin. First thing was the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF, which happened in January of 2024. Thing number two was the change in the FASB accounting rules, which happened in December of 2024. And yesterday, with the repeal of SAB 121, it opens the road, it clears the way for banks to custody Bitcoin, which Michael Saylor said was necessary in order for Bitcoin to reach these new heights. So very, very exciting news overall. And guys, we have an incredibly special guest joining us today. We have Frank Holmes. Frank Holmes is the executive chair of Hive Digital Technologies and my legendary co-host, who's always optimistic, Optimus Fields, joining us in the house today. Guys, it's been a crazy, crazy week with the inauguration of Trump, the first pro-Bitcoin president in the White House. And yesterday, an order came through that I think we all have been waiting for. And of course, that is the repeal of SAB 121. Here are some of the details. The Security and Exchange Commission has canceled a controversial rule that asks financial firms holding crypto to record them as liabilities on their balance sheet. Here is Hester Pierce. Hester Pierce is the SEC commissioner, and she says, bye-bye SAB 121. It's not been fun. The SEC published SAB 121 in March of 2022, which asks financial firms holding crypto on behalf of customers to report the assets as a liability on their balance sheet. The crypto industry pushed back on the measure, saying it would make holding crypto administratively more difficult. Senator Cynthia Lummis, the Bitcoin senator, added that SAB 121 was, quote, was disastrous for the banking industry and only stunted American innovation and advancement of digital assets. Quote, I am thrilled to see it repealed and get the SEC back on track to fulfilling its intended mission, she added. Here is Eric Weiss. Eric Weiss is the person who orange-pilled Michael Saylor, and he said, can't be overstated how important this is. You'll soon be able to borrow against your Bitcoin and get paid interest on it. So the three things that Saylor said needed to happen in order for Bitcoin to hit $5 million per coin have happened. SAB 121 has been repealed. I believe the new order is called SAB 122. So, I mean, we've been talking about this for months now. It's finally happened. And I want to get Frank's opinion on this. Frank, were you overwhelmed, underwhelmed about the recent executive order coming out of the Trump administration? Frank.
I'm very overwhelmed with it. It's so positive and constructive, and maybe the bank lobbyists won't be writing all these draconian rules for the banking industry to attack the crypto ecosystem. And that's what's gone on. You can see that many times. Often that when Jamie Dimon was being interviewed, it was all a staged phenomena that took place, and those rules all of a sudden change, that the banks can make money from it, and I think it's really key, like mark to market for holding Bitcoin. Now the banks, I think this next 12 months, you're going to see many changes in regulations that facilitate the growth and the innovative juices of the Bitcoin network to prosper and grow.
Absolutely, 100%. I completely agree with that. Opti, what's your take on this? We've been covering this for months now. It finally happened. Do you think $5 million Bitcoin is around the corner? Opti, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not going to say $5 million Bitcoin 2025, but this is the roadmap to $5 million Bitcoin. So we'll tentatively say by next cycle, next cycle high, I think we can say $5 million. But no, really going into the SAB 121 stuff, I think this was huge. Obviously, a lot of Bitcoiners, and we'll cover it later today, a lot of Bitcoiners felt a little disappointed with the executive order around the strategic Bitcoin stockpile. But I think this is probably the bigger news that really opens up a lot of capital coming into Bitcoin. Obviously, here at Simply Bitcoin, we don't really recommend you guys take your Bitcoin to the banks. This is kind of seeming like the Bitcoin or the banks want your Bitcoin, but this does open up a lot of capital. And I mean, I've been kind of trolling a little bit on not only just Twitter, but with friends. It seems like a lot of people don't really want to custody their own Bitcoin. And this is one of those things where now, since banks are being allowed to go into Bitcoin, there is that regulatory clarity now that, hey, they can hold your Bitcoin. It seems like a lot of normie capital will end up with the banks that want to, custody your Bitcoin. But what Eric Weiss was saying, I think, is another huge thing that now you can loan your Bitcoin. As we've been talking about on the show, as a lot of Bitcoiners been saying around Twitter for a long time, Bitcoin is the pristine collateral. So now that we're opening this stuff up and it's seeming like Bitcoin is totally being financialized, and we're seeing that the TradFi world is looking at Bitcoin as a legitimate thing to hold, it's obviously going to open up a lot of capital. And as we say all the time, this is obviously very good for number going up, but for everyone out there, all of our audience and all of our friends, we highly recommend that you buy that Bitcoin and take it into self-custody. This is how we ensure the revolution here of Bitcoin, and it doesn't get captured. But this is huge. This is obviously huge because now it opens up the door for a lot of companies to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And we've all seen what happened with MicroStrategy, what Michael Saylor's been doing. We've seen Semler Scientific and a lot of other companies follow suit with adding Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And now it's becoming a very easy thing for them. It's no longer going to hurt, their stock performance. It's no longer going to scare the shareholders out there. They can add Bitcoin to their balance sheet and not mark it down as a liability and just add it as, an asset on their balance sheet. And so on paper, it makes everything look a lot prettier for people that want to hold Bitcoin. So there's going to open up a lot of capital coming into Bitcoin. I think this is super bullish. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the Bitcoin space. But repealing SAB 121, I think, is one of the huge wins that we got this week. Obviously, freeing Ross was the other huge win for the Bitcoin and libertarian space. But this is very good. And I mean, yesterday, Nico, we were kind of talking about whether SAB 121 was going to be one of these executive orders. I guess it wasn't actually an executive order, but we did get it by the end of the day. So I don't know. Maybe once you're a Bitcoiner, you can predict things a little easier, even if you have a 65 IQ like I do. So hey, we get to see a lot of things on the horizon, and man, it's what's the meme, Nico? You're gonna win so hard, you're gonna get tired of winning. I think this is where we are, man. We are winning extremely hard right now.
Absolutely, and you did name drop, Opti. You did.
I'd just like to add that there's many positive, unexpected consequences. The crossover is my vintage, and my vintage all of a sudden feels much more comfortable of going through a known stockbroker to go and buy an ETF that has Bitcoin in it. And if I'm spending $1,000 a month at Robinhood, I'm really buying Satoshis, but I'm buying. And that big crossover is going to take place. And then it will fuel other people that are more sophisticated, that are more feeling safe, are going to come in and buy their Bitcoin directly and take it off and put it in cold storage, which you were just recommending. But I think this opens it up because the banks will lend to the brokers. But if they have a Bitcoin on their balance sheet, not Microsoft stock, if they're doing securities lending, all of a sudden make a liability. That's all going away. So it lends itself also for the growth of the ETF ecosystem if there's any margin accounts.
Absolutely. And then Opti, you did mention a bunch of public companies that hold Bitcoin on their balance sheet. Well, we do have the executive chairman of Hive, which is one of those public companies that holds 2,805 Bitcoin. You guys are currently hodling that right now. And Frank, another thing that I wanted to ask you is part of this executive order was the focus on AI. And I know that Hive, you guys have been focusing on AI. The last time you came on the show, we spent like 5 to 10 minutes talking about that. So what are the implications of this executive order? Is it going to help Hive? What's your perspective?
No, it's going to help Hive, but it's going to create a lot of other disruptions. What's taking place now is the value of your energy is very key because you need stable energy to build a data center for AI. And what's happened after CoreWeave went after Core Scientific and Core Scientific wasn't taken over, they partnered and there's a reset button on the valuation of Core Scientific. Well, you've got now hedge funds are coming out and buying big positions, 10% of Riot, and telling them to take their energy and repurpose for HPC, not Bitcoin mining. So we're seeing the tectonic plate shift. And how it will come will be, I don't know, I can't tell you exactly, but I do see the value of that energy has gone up dramatically. And the push, like today, India talked about a 11 gigawatt source of electricity to build a high performance campus of data centers. These are monstrous numbers. For your listeners, 1 megawatt of energy for Bitcoin mining is $1 million. Simple and easy to think about it. If you're going to do HPC, it's 10 million before you bought any chips. We just bought some NVIDIA H200s. You're talking $70,000 a chip. You're not talking 7,000. You're not talking 700. It's another level. So you've got to have this huge infrastructure build, and you're going to have on top of that these GPU chips bought. There is a big push for data centers becoming sovereign assets, basically. Like water is so important. These data centers are going to become so important, but attached to that is a source of energy.
Beautiful. It's exciting times. Now, you mentioned Frank, and I want to educate our audience. You mentioned HCP. Is that correct?
I did. That's the acronym for high performance computing and hyperscalers, they're called. So AWS or CoreWeave, which is bought into Core Scientific, and CoreWeave is supposed to be going public later this year. It's gone from $1 billion valuation to $20 billion valuation. If you look at Elon Musk's AI unit that last year bought $3.5 billion worth of H100s and fast-tracked, I think just outside of Nashville, his data center, which Jensen said is epic of how fast he built it. This is all evolving very quickly, but it's all in the back. What to me is most interesting, it's Bitcoin miners. They're the first to go to these centers. They're the first to take stranded energy and reconvert it. They're the first to turn around and balance the grid. I know Hive was the first in the world to do this in Sweden, and Riot did it in Texas. So we can see that the significance of innovation are the Bitcoin miners.
That's incredible. And why do you think Bitcoin miners were the first ones to really go to these places and find the stranded energy, use the stranded? Why was it that Bitcoin miners were leading the charge on this, Frank?
Because they're so focused on efficiency of energy. From the chip that you buy, every new chip now is coming out to be much more efficient. That is, they like to call how many joules are you consuming of electricity, and it used to be 35 joules, and then it's now 27 joules, and then it's 21 joules. You see, all the mining companies are now posting how many joules they're consuming of these new terahash units they're buying. So it's really interesting how efficient you have to be to survive. And the biggest part is your cost of electricity. So they were able to find stranded electricity for 2 cents that was going nowhere, as being wasted. And in would come a Bitcoin miner, and they could take older equipment and get their capital return. The most efficient people on getting that cash flow return on invested capital I've seen have been Bitcoin miners.
That's beautiful. Yeah, Bitcoin essentially comes in and it gives value to otherwise stranded energy or wasted energy. I don't know if that's the correct term, but Bitcoin gives in there the stranded energy pockets. Bitcoin miners could go there and turn that stranded energy or isolated energy into sweet Satoshis. And I think there's going to be worldwide implications for just that.
I can share this, what we're doing in Paraguay. Paraguay has all these power lines coming from the biggest dam in the Western Hemisphere, and it's stranded. So they can't really use it domestically. If they give it back to Brazil, they sell it to Argentina. They always have slow pay or no pay, with all respect, and the other countries. So we have to go and build the substation. Oh, that's only $8 million. So these power lines are huge. You can never put your hairdryer into them or your toaster in the morning, it explode. So you have to create step downs of these big pipes of electricity. Well, 8 million, 10 million substations, and then transformers to do that. So now it is Hive, and there's been other companies that have gone in to build this, that now you can light up the local community, because that electricity has a surplus that it can go into schools and buildings and etc. So I know firsthand what these benefits are when we come in.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, guys, we're going to be right back. We're going to hit the numbers. But before we do that, guys, there's 1,600 of you guys watching live between all the platforms, 600 watching live just on YouTube alone. Help us break 200 likes within the first 25 minutes of the show. So if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. You guys are listening to Simply Bitcoin Live with Nico, Opti, and Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman of Hive Digital Technologies. So guys, the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack is bitcoinwell.com. Buy real Bitcoin, enable your independence is the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada and the USA. What makes Bitcoin Well different is that it's a completely non-custodial platform. Also, if you're a higher net worth individual looking to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more, check out their Bitcoin Well Infinite product. If you're tired of dealing with finicky UI or support emails that take forever to get back to you, and you want a real human being that you can call or text every time you want to buy or sell Bitcoin, you have to check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. And if you're in the United States, Americans can now get paid in Bitcoin sent directly to their personal Bitcoin wallet. Share your Bitcoin Well deposit details with your employer, set your Bitcoin/dollar split, and receive stats instead of fiat with every paycheck. Guys, go check out bitcoinwell.com today. All right, everybody, let's get to the numbers. We have tons to talk about. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. All right, everybody, use the QR code on your screen right now. It'll take you directly to the stampseed.com website. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their website. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 106,660. Block height 880,661. Sats per dollar under 1,938. Market cap 2.11 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap 10.97%. Percentage issued 94.35%. Decline from all-time high negative 2.3%. Realized monetary inflation 1.05%. In the grand scheme of things, the party is just getting started. Anyways, I have a clip for you guys of Mark Moss at the Bitcoin MENA conference explaining why $1 million Bitcoin is bearish. It's about a 2-minute clip. I'm going to play it and then we're going to talk about it. Let's check it out.
Now imagine a world where your money gets stronger every year. Imagine a world where your money buys you more goods and services in the future instead of less. A world where actually we're seeing innovation thrive and again, life getting easier and not harder. Now under this Bitcoin standard, we can actually start to see the reality of AI and robotics and energy all working together to reduce the cost and expand access, creating massive amounts of abundance. Now, this is in a Bitcoin-denominated world. As Jeff Booth laid out earlier, this cannot happen in a fiat world. The systems are incompatible. The only way that we achieve this is with Bitcoin, and of course, everybody wants this. Now, in this phase, the maturity phase, I'm predicting, again, using what the Congressional Budget Office has shown us through 2054, that the money printing continues. Global store of assets have gone from $3.5 quadrillion to $8.5 quadrillion, which sounds absolutely crazy, but again, my parents bought a home for $40,000. I mean, that's how crazy this world is. Now, money is still there, bonds are still there, real estate, equities, collectibles, gold, all of those things are there. Bitcoin is now slowed down to about a 20% ARR. We're not talking crazy numbers. We're not talking a 4,000% ARR. And Bitcoin has gone from a 289 trillion to now a 1.8 quadrillion dollar asset class. Divide that by the 21 million, and we are talking $85 million per Bitcoin. And again, this doesn't mean the dollar is worthless. This doesn't mean that dollars are no longer here. This just means that Bitcoin has captured value from all the other asset classes. Bitcoin is now the second largest asset in the world, behind real estate. And yes, it's pulled a lot of value from real estate, but we still, turns out need places to live, still need warehouses for our stuff, buildings to meet in. Turns out we still need real estate, but it has pulled value from real estate as well as every other asset that's out there. It's become the denominator. And at this point, the world has decided that we should no longer use the denominator of fiat currency. And at this point, Bitcoin has reached its full and final stage, which is stage 5, and has become the global unit of account. At this point, you no longer measure your wealth in fiat, you measure your wealth in Bitcoin. And at this point, one Bitcoin.
Wow. I mean, I thought Michael Saylor's predictions of $13 million per coin. Mark Moss is saying, what did he say? 85 million? That's insane. That's insanity. I can't comprehend it, but I forget where I saw this from. And I was speaking to a friend, and I was speaking to American Hodl yesterday. And he basically said, like, Nico, I remember the first time I bought Bitcoin, it was like $200 per coin. And we could have never in our wildest dreams have imagined 100,000. Imagine $200, 100,000. And I remember when I got in, it was roughly $600 to $700 per Bitcoin. And never in my wildest dreams did I think 100,000 was possible. In fact, I thought I was late, right? So if you apply that same logic heading into the future, I mean, yeah, today, right now, where we are in this moment, I think $1 million is like, oh my God, we're looking at that and we're like, that's crazy. We're looking at $10 million maybe in a couple decades, and we're like, that's absolutely insane. That's impossible. But all you have to do is look at the past and realize that we've been here before. So, Frank, are these predictions, because I guess that's what they are they overly bullish? Are you optimistic about Bitcoin heading into the future? Is $10 million Bitcoin possible in the next 10, 20 years? Frank, what's your opinion?
You know, who would have guessed Bitcoin around 15 years ago, 20 years ago, there was no Bitcoin. And how did you forecast that Bitcoin, that where it's going to go? So you don't know between now and then to make a linear line that far out. And it's great for enthusiasm and optimism. But I think on a more realistic basis, what would make Bitcoin worth $1 million? And that would mean a Satoshi is trading at 1 cent only. And right now, you can turn around and buy fractions of $1,000 of HODL ETF, and $1,000 is going to give you close to 1 million Satoshis. I think that is very digestible, and that is still pushing almost tenfold on your money. And I think that can happen over the next couple of years. That's more realistic than it's going to be bigger than the whole real estate world. I think that when you go that path, it's going to the push this past week by Fink from BlackRock was tokenized now bonds and stocks. So what happens then if you put that into the equation, if you tokenize real estate basically around a Bitcoin, the way ordinals were created? That would be that dimension that would take that, because if real estate was all tokenized to the Bitcoin network, the contracts, the securities, then you can create a number like that. But to say Bitcoin singularly is going to do that, that's just a wonderful dream.
Yeah, do you agree with the aspect of Bitcoin would take the monetary premium away from real estate? Do you agree with that theory?
No, I think we're going to see the success of tokenization of these other assets. And I think that's what's really important, that securities to be tokenized. A classic would be what happened with the Trump meme coin. What people I try to explain in the stock exchange world, it would be impossible to get all those other exchanges to get a hyperlink into the Solana network, because that's where it was launched at less than 20 cents. And 3 days later, it had reached $75. No penny stock has ever done that. Well, big reason why is that all the other exchanges were calling their workers at 3 o'clock in the morning to start coding to create the hyperlink. So therefore we could put on our platform the Trump meme coin. That's an unregulated space of getting that coding. You couldn't do that. So you have to think of that it was so successful and so volatile. And as we saw more spokes going into that network, the more the Trump coin went up. And so this lends itself, what happens if you create not just a meme coin, but if you tokenize all the buildings, and how fast could the exchanges around the world all of a sudden be able to hyperlink into that? Or would it be protectionism, or with that hyperlink? This is the great gray area, because the Bitcoin network is over 20,000 active players around the world with 195 central banks. But really, there's only 10 really strong stock exchanges that have robust activity. So how would that be? I think the stock exchanges could probably grow dramatically. I think the commodity exchanges, if you tokenize, can grow dramatically. And I think the idea of speculating and trading around the world can grow dramatically on the Bitcoin network, which is going to be, if Bitcoin's going to $1 million, by that time there's going to be 35,000 nodes around the world.
Yeah, and that's a really good point too, Frank, because I never thought about it that way, because like the way that like a lot of these stocks, right now, the way they function, it's all analog. The markets also close. They're not 24-hour markets. I think that's going to change as well. And it's only available to US citizens. Imagine if you're someone in another country, you're able to trade the US markets. You're able to kind of exchange those stocks. You're not able to do that in its current form. So I think that's a really good point. Opti, what's your take on this? Do you think Mark is overly bullish, overly bearish? What's your take, Opti?
Well, I mean, 85 million per Bitcoin sounds ridiculous. It really reminds me of what you just said about American HODL. And I'm remembered of what he said a long time ago. He bought Bitcoin. I think when he was tweeting about it, he said, I got in around a couple $100 a coin. And now Bitcoin fluctuates by a couple $100 a second at this point. And getting into Bitcoin around the 1 to 10K area, when Bitcoin does fluctuate in these numbers, you kind of like build an immunity to it. You're kind of just unfazed by it. So do I think that it's a possibility that we start to, go into these God candles, Omega candles, and the Bitcoin price fluctuates by 10, 20, 50, $100,000 per day movements? I think it's fully a possibility, especially when Bitcoin does get into seven figures. But as of now, I am trying to be conservative here. I am as bullish as Mark is in the long term. But I think as a Bitcoin, it's like, let's get to like $500,000 a coin and then maybe $1 million a coin before we start talking about $85 million per coin. But like Frank was saying, if Bitcoin does get to dollar sat parity, that's 100 million per coin. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. Obviously, we don't have a time frame here, but looking at Mark's time frame, that was 2050. So, 25 years from now, is it a possibility? I mean, I would be a bear if I didn't say that I think there's a possibility it could happen. So I'm going to stay on the optimistically bull-tarded side of this bet and say, yes, it is possible.
I absolutely love that. All right, guys, we're going to be right back. We're going to be talking about Trump's executive order called Strengthening American Leadership and Digital Financial Technology with Opti and Frank Holmes, executive chairman of Hive Digital Technologies. And during the culture segment, we have some announcements coming out of Hive, some very, very exciting announcements. So really, really looking forward to that. Guys, there's already 2,300 of you guys watching live between all platforms. So guys, make sure to smash that like button. Only on YouTube alone, 744 live viewers. Holy cow. So guys, smash that like button. Help us break 300 likes. We're already at almost 250 likes within the first 45 minutes of the show. You guys are listening to Simply Bitcoin Live. We will be right back.
I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io, and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind.
All right, everybody, this is Opti. Opti is showing the Passport by Foundation Devices hardware wallet, not your keys, not your cheese. Use promo code SIMPLY to get a small discount. Again, guys, not your keys, not your cheese. Scan the QR code, check the link in the video description. The promo code won't get you Opti, but it will get you a discount. Passport by Foundation Devices. All right, everybody. So let's talk about Trump's executive order that was released yesterday. It pertains to the digital assets industry. It mentions mining, and I'm going to read some of the highlights, and then we'll talk about it. So it goes on to say, by the authority vested in me as president, by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, in order to promote United States leadership in digital assets and financial technology while protecting economic liberty, it is hereby ordered as follows. The digital asset industry plays a crucial role in innovation and economic development in the United States, as well as our nation's international leadership. It is therefore the policy of my administration to support the responsible growth and use of digital assets, blockchain technology, and related technologies across all sectors of the economy, including by the first one, protecting and promoting the ability of individual citizens and private sector entities alike to access and use for lawful purposes open blockchain networks without persecution, including the ability to develop and deploy software, to participate in mining and validating, to transact with other persons without unlawful censorship, and maintain self-custody of digital assets. I mean, Opti, the rest of these, they're cool, but I really, really like this first one, man. Self-custody in the executive order, the right to mine and validate and to transact without fear of persecution or censorship. It also specifically mentions that they're taking measures to protect Americans from the risks of central bank digital currencies, which threaten the stability of the financial system, individual privacy, and the sovereignty of the United States, including by prohibiting the establishment, issuance, circulations, and a use of a CBDC within the jurisdiction of the United States. Now, what's really interesting about this, and Opti, you mentioned this to me in earlier on, is that it looks like the European Union took the other route and they doubled down on the digital euro, which is the European central bank digital currency. Now, I want to take advantage of the fact that we got Frank Holmes in the house, and I want to ask Frank about this specific passage. Frank, how do you feel about in the first digital assets executive order coming out of the White House, mining is named? How do you feel about that?
I feel thrilled. I'm very thrilled. And we have moved the head office of Hive from Vancouver to San Antonio, Texas. So we have moved to the US, where I feel that the company's head office is now safer from overreaching, vilifying attacks that can take easily through the big banking and the politicians that are behind what was the previous couple of I guess I've got to be so polite how I say it, regulatory regimes.
Yeah. And did you guys do that on purpose because of the incoming Trump administration? Like, you saw it and you said, okay, now it's safer to move to the great state of Texas. We all know how the local Texas government feels about Bitcoin mining. They want to make Texas the Bitcoin capital of the world. So this was on purpose, based on the election of Trump and, of course, the local regulatory environment in the state of Texas. Is that correct, Frank?
Absolutely. You know, when I first was trying to launch a Bitcoin ETF was 2017. Wow. And that led me down the journey to co-found the creation of Hive, to being the first crypto mining company. And holding our coins at that time was, we became a proxy for particular baby boomers who were reluctant to go to these exchanges to buy Bitcoin. They used Hive as his proxy.
Yeah. And let me ask you something else, Frank, as well. You tried to launch the first Bitcoin ETF in 2017. Was it surprised that it took so long? 2017 to 2024?
Well, I was surprised it took so long, but there's just so much politics behind any government political party that believes in centralization of everything versus decentralization just created more difficulty, and that's what we had to witness, and overreaching. I saw this in Canada after Hive went public, where the regulatory SEC equivalent has the accounting board reporting to it. So they weaponized the accounting board, and the accounting board went after every audit firm that did an audit on any mining company. So if you had a big 6-7 audit firm, they were told unequivocally in Canada in 2018-19 that they were not allowed to audit firms. And this impacted limited partnerships not being able to get audited. If you had if you were creating a fund, how are you going to get auditors? And if you look at in the U.S., all the big Bitcoin miners, they don't have the big four audit firms. So why was that? So you see that it was one of those mechanisms of weaponization. It did hit the media in Canada on their biggest financial publication in 2019 era. It didn't hit the Wall Street Journal. So you see that the news and information really is on decentralized platforms like this. This is where people get their insights now.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think the era of I call it the legacy media is really being replaced by independent media, and you see this across the board. People are getting their information on X, they're getting their information on YouTube, they're getting their information on Rumble, and it allows what I call the circumvention of the gatekeepers of information. It allows peer-to-peer communication like what we're doing right now. And I think it's going to be a much better world for it because it allows free and open discussion. Opti, what's your take on this?
I'll give you my experiences I found is always being on the CNBCs and the Bloombergs around the world. Going into the Bitcoin realm, there was pressure on them about me talking and doing an interview like this. And then it became, for anything under $1 billion market cap, there could be manipulation. So what does that do? That really affects the formation of capital for a new idea, a new technology, a new biotechnology, a new crypto mining company. So where investors have to go, they have to go to mediums like yourself and get the insights of a new coin or a new mining company or views and perspectives of the industry.
Yeah, 100%. It's a brave new world, and it's really exciting. I'm and especially if someone who's focused on media. Guys, 2,500 live viewers right now between YouTube, Rumble, and X. The number keeps going up. Almost 800 live viewers on YouTube. Holy cow. We broke 300 likes. Let's move up that target. 400 likes within the first 50 minutes of the show. So if you guys are enjoying Simply Bitcoin Live, I'm here, Nico. I'm here with my co-host, Optimus Fields, and our special guest today, Frank Holmes, Executive Chairman of Hive Digital Technologies. Hive was the first publicly traded Bitcoin mining company. Opti, what's your take on Trump's executive order, specifically on the right to self-custody, which I think was awesome, and the central bank digital currencies?
Yeah, so obviously when this dropped, like a lot of Bitcoiners out there, it did feel kind of like a rug pull, not one mention of Bitcoin. So this was all the noise on Twitter, right? But when you kind of look into it, and not trying to spin this in a positive way, a lot of the things that were in this executive order were actually, I would say, really good, especially what you just mentioned, the right to transact, mine, hold, the right to self-custody, the right to develop software, and of course, in the very act, nuking a CBDC coming out of the federal government. Also, one thing that is very interesting in regards to the executive order is that when they named this watch group, that's kind of the organization or the administration of the group that's going to push this strategic Bitcoin reserve or stockpile or whatever you want to call it. They specifically, I think, omitted adding the Federal Reserve or the FDIC to this group, which I think is huge. I think that is like the really big signal here, considering what we've seen the Fed do, the FDIC do. And shout out to Caitlin Long for pointing this out on Twitter. They're the ones that have been actively fighting the Bitcoin administration, or sorry, the Bitcoin network the last couple of years. And now they're completely excluded from even having any oversight over this, strategic Bitcoin stockpile or strategic digital asset stockpile. Now, I know a lot of Bitcoiners out there are kind of saying right now, I think the new meme is if it's not a Bitcoin only stockpile, then there should be no stockpile. Now, I mean, I obviously fall into that sentiment, but when you really kind of look into it, Bitcoin's the only thing that is actually going to give people peace of mind moving forward. So I think, obviously it's going to have Bitcoin. It's going to mainly be Bitcoin. And let's not forget, there was a time frame there. I think it said 180 days to basically implement this and make this happen. So Bitcoiners have about 6 months to not only educate the federal government, but interact and communicate with the watch group and show them that, yeah, this should mainly be Bitcoin. And shouts out to our boy Nolan. I love Nolan. I was watching his show this morning, and he was making an interesting point in regards to the strategic stockpile, that what this opens up is going to be Bitcoin bonds in the future. And we saw what El Salvador did with their Bitcoin bond product. And this is really the huge win falling after this. So on the surface level, yes, it feels like we got rug pulled. Bitcoin wasn't mentioned once in this. Bitcoiners are really mad. Bitcoin maxis are, getting upset about it, and I'm totally on that sentiment as well. But I think when you kind of look into it and going a little further, there is a lot of good stuff that did come out of this proposal that I think is a good first step. And now we're also going to see the dominoes fall around the world. Other countries are going to have to follow suit. And hey, if other countries want to add something that's not Bitcoin to their stockpile, well, that's not going to give them the peace of mind that Bitcoin will. And so Bitcoin's obviously going to lead. Bitcoin is the superior digital asset. Of course, there's no second best. So, as we've said before, the best way to become a Bitcoin maxi is usually by going through your shitcoin phase. Did we expect that a nation state wasn't also going to go through it? Obviously, El Salvador is the exception here with Bukele, but I think this is a good first step. And as the Bitcoin community or, people involved in Bitcoin, I think it's very important for us to continue to communicate with them and open this dialogue with them. And now they've obviously followed through on their promises. And so we'll see what actually happens in 6 months in regards to this. But now we have something official. So, hey, Bitcoin, as Nico's been saying, we are in the room now. And it's upon us Bitcoiners to continue to educate them and show them that Bitcoin is the only thing that matters. And Bitcoin is the way. And all roads lead to Bitcoin. So a lot of good things in this proposal, this executive order. Obviously, it's not perfect, but we have time to, I think, correct the ship. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see what actually happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, guys. Historical moment, I think, in American history. The first Bitcoin president signed the first executive order relating to the industry. The name of the executive order is Strengthening American Leadership in Digital Financial Technology. And here is a clip of Trump actually signing it.
Come out. There's nobody like this guy. They said, how did you get David Sachs? How did you do that? And he's doing it for the country more than anything else.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to talk all things Hive. We're going to hit the culture segment, almost at 3,000 live viewers, and we just broke 800 live viewers on YouTube. Holy cow, guys, smash the like button. Help us break 400 likes by the end of the show. So we'll be right back. We're going to hit the culture segment.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Hive Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, Hive's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, Hive continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, Hive consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at Hive Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com.
All right, everybody, before we get to the culture, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, BitBlockBoom. Guys, it's going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the year, April 3rd through the 6th. It's going to be in Dallas, Texas. Guys, you definitely don't want to miss it. Some of your favorite Bitcoiners are going to be there. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. You definitely don't want to miss this Bitcoin conference. Get your tickets now. Use promo code BBB21 to get $100 off of your tickets. All right, everybody, we have Frank Holmes in the house today, Executive Chairman of Hive Digital Technologies, and we're going to talk about all things Hive. So I have a couple things that I want to talk about. First, this Twitter thread. Santiago Peña became the first Paraguayan president to attend a U.S. presidential inauguration. This, of course, this happened a couple days ago. Why is Hive choosing to expand its global footprint in Paraguay? The U.S. and Paraguay share a long history of cooperation. It goes on to say the U.S. and Paraguay share a rich history dating back to the 19th century when President Rutherford Hayes resolved a key border dispute in Paraguay's favor. His decision made him a national hero with a province named in his honor. I did not know that. His enduring legacy lives on as we continue to strengthen our ties today. Paraguay is home to abundant, low-cost, renewable energy thanks to its vast hydroelectric resources. In fact, Paraguay produces 100% renewable electricity, making it one of the greenest energy producers in the world. By expanding Hive's operations there, they can help put this clean energy to work by powering the Bitcoin network in a sustainable, responsible way, aligning with our mission to drive innovation without compromising the planet. Here is the picture of the dam. Frank, what is the name of that beautiful, beautiful dam that we're looking at right now?
Tuba. And what's interesting, it's almost 5 miles long.
That's insane.
They need to do a 5K race there. But coming back, I wanted to share with you, you mentioned earlier, I think it's really important to understand what Trump did in his first 4 years. He appointed a lot of federal judges who were constitutional judges. Now, why is that important? Because constitutional judges are very strong in private property rights. And common law, which we live under, is the strongest in private property rights, which really led to human rights. And that whole started with the Magna Carta almost 800 and some odd years ago. So it's really important to recognize that a lot of battles, when they get to the federal court system, if they'll swing left or right, is how strong is the judge, a constitutional judge. And now with control of the Senate and Congress, and the openings for any new federal judges will be also, I believe, strong constitutional judges, which the president appoints, the Senate approves. And that's really key for the long term, because the President Trump has fallen in love with this idea of Bitcoin because it is private property rights. And it creates individual liberty. It's something that's portable, that protects you outside of oppressive anywhere. And when you're in Argentina, it's been oppressed since 2002. Now, the new leader is doing an incredible job, but still, you can't open a U.S. bank account. But that's been a huge win for Tether, because everyone in South America keeps their U.S. dollars outside of the banking system, fear of confiscation of their U.S. dollars, now into Tether. So I really think with this, the order that's been pushed through is profound, it's significant, and we will see, besides talking about Bitcoin going up exponentially, I think we'll see the evolution and innovation grow exponentially.
Absolutely. And speaking about the importance of judges, right, placed in the right places. The Supreme Court ruled recently on I believe the name of the case was the Chevron Doctrine, and it took away essentially the power of federal agencies to regulate, and gave that power back to the legislative branch of government, which is where it was supposed to be in the first place. So yes, I completely agree with Frank. Having the right judges is incredibly important. Opti, what's your take on? Go ahead, Frank.
The rule of law. The whole concept is, what is the rule of law? And when you go to other countries, before we went to Paraguay, it was very important for me to be able to go meet the president, to understand the strengths and risks of that country, and learning that how much they love America, how they're connected. And the president, he studied in America. He studied in New York. He worked for the World Bank and knows everyone in central banks and has a great rating for his country. So he was much faster to embrace it. They're also connected to Taiwan. They've not broken off like Panama left to go to China. And other countries have dropped Taiwan. He's pro-Israel. So he's very unique and very aligned with America and the interests.
Absolutely. And here's a picture of you and the president. The president's name is Santiago Peña. We were talking about this before we went on air, Frank. He is the first Paraguayan president to receive an invitation to the U.S. presidential inauguration.
And Mexico didn't, Canada didn't, Colombia didn't, Chile didn't. Anyone that's got left, way left, which is centralized control of the economy and society, those types of leaderships were not invited.
Yeah, it's the world is moving away from that the centralization. Mark Moss calls it peak centralization, and I think we're heading into a decentralized future. Now, Frank, another thing that I want to talk to you about as well is another one of the thread posts, the announcements. It goes on to say, as data centers increasingly become a national security priority, the formation of our Global Strategy Advisory Committee marks a significant step forward in Hive's mission to responsibly expand its global footprint. Hive Digital Technologies welcomes Lieutenant General John R. Evans, I want to specify he's a retired Lieutenant General, to Global Strategy Advisory Committee. So Frank, what was the logic behind this? Here is a picture of the retired general. And why did you guys feel like this was important to make this move?
Well, especially when you're functioning in 5 different countries and 9 time zones, you start to realize there's different geopolitical places where you want to be and not to be. And what's taking place in Paraguay, what the benefits of us Bitcoin mining, we help the government because we help their utility get US dollars every month. That's a big benefit to their local economy. At the same time for our shareholders. And so in that journey, you realize that there's lots of stress, and I've called it the new red Cold War, and that's China and Russia. And China and Russia, what China's done in Panama, what China's done in Greenland. I mean, China now has 3 icebreakers saying the Arctic is theirs, and they wanted to build a military base in Greenland. The U.S. government will reach out to Denmark to stop this. They try to do rare earth mining, strategic minerals in Greenland. So the politics of the world has changed quickly. Cybersecurity has changed quickly. Cybersecurity needs data centers. Cybersecurity needs the latest of AI development to protect against hacking. And most of the hacks are coming out of China and Russia. So John was in charge of all of North America. He's 3-star Army general. He was a helicopter pilot, flying Apaches. He was in Desert Storm, Afghanistan, Iraq. So not only being a major soldier, he's been at the same time running thousands of workers and have to deal with cybersecurity, homeland issues, right up from the Arctic Circle down to Central America. Now, South America is a different leader, but we want to tap into him. He lives in San Antonio. He is 10 minutes from my home, easy to get to connect and to give us an overview of our strategies when we're saying we're going to go into this country. What do you see? We're in northern Sweden. We're in a town called Boden. In that town is a military town. San Antonio is a military city. In that town, since Putin invaded Ukraine, it's now been activated. Sweden is part of NATO, and it's nothing but you hear cannons and guns going off all day long in training. Data centers are becoming more and more important. So I want to make sure that Hive had a second view of strategy in that cybersecurity. He's an expert on that space.
Incredible. And I think that's a very, very, Very strategic, very smart, good move as you guys expand globally. Now, Frank, I wanted to ask you about this, and I want to educate the audience in the process, right? Is the importance, you mentioned this earlier, you said that data centers are going to continue to increase from right now where we are today, and also energy use or energy demand is going to continue to increase from these data centers as AI continues to be used. Could you talk a little bit about that, about the potential heading into the future as massive data centers get built out? I believe there was a Trump press conference that was focusing on just this. Frank, what is your opinion? What is the future of data centers? What is the future of energy consumption? Frank.
So now you have a talk first of $100 billion going into this sector for high performance computing data centers, which are going to buy a lot of NVIDIA chips. Then it gets up to 200 billion. Then it pushes 500 billion. That's bigger than many countries' GDPs. And it is a significant number. Now, to go and do that, you have to have electricity. So this is going to be a big spend for this electricity. But what we do know is that wind power and solar power is not consistent. Hydro is, nuclear, so small nuclear plants. We believe that micro nuclear is going to grow, especially last year after you saw AWS spend 650 million to get access to a gigawatt of a nuclear energy. That was the all attack on nuclear energy sort of went away. All the NGOs attacking nuclear went away. And I think that we're seeing a new power structure, that power is very important. Then we see, we talked earlier in the show, CoreWeave and Core Scientific and the value of Core Scientific. It went through bankruptcy and is 50 cents and then goes to $15 very, very quickly because they have this excess energy. And then we have activist shareholders going after Riot about their surplus energy that should be used for high performance computing. So this amount of money to go into data centers is very important for the future for AI, but they need energy.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think do you think that's going to be built out in the United? Because you and I both know this, Frank. Like there's some. I don't want to be specific and I want to be inclusive in my messaging. Like there are some political viewpoints. How do I say it? There's some political viewpoints that aren't exactly very friendly to the rollout of energy. I would say they're anti-energy. Do you think the world's energy needs in the future are going to be able to be met?
Yeah, I think there's going to be many shifts, and I do know now if you have brand new land and you get an energy contract, still the permitting process can take you years before you have your data center. So that's a big spend. What land was worth in one facility we looked at was worth $200,000 an acre is now $2 million. Why? Because they have the energy contracts for that area and the permitting in place, so you can go do that. So you see this exponential growth in the value of the land just because of the permitting and everything for the energy. Well, that's too long for many companies, and that's quite expensive to start. So what's the least expensive? A lot of Bitcoin miners. And Bitcoin miners, like mentioning Riot, et cetera, and other companies repositioning. We saw that with TeraWulf turn around and reposition their company for the AI and the value of that. We have done it early because we were mining Ethereum with our GPU chips. That went away, and we started the AI on these platforms we call bare metal platforms, and it's working out well. I think we're now doing about $7 million of free cash flow. The way I look at the model for it, because it's the same team that's generating this. But we will convert in some of our data centers now, like in Bowden, we have 7 megawatts, and in Maine, on the border of Maine, in Canada, in New Brunswick, we're looking at 20 megawatts of converting that to HPC because we have the energy contracts. But what's really important is that we have the construction. We already have the platforms in place. We have the buildings in place. It's the additional construction that's necessary that's so expensive, and the the duplicity of everything you have to do, the duplication, sorry, of everything you have to do. So that process is much faster. You don't have to wait 3 years. You can do that in 9 months. And so that's where the value of the Bitcoin miners that have steady energy contracts have this new valuation put on them.
Gotcha. And Frank, as we move into what I think all of us are expecting is going to be a great Bitcoin bull market, of course, the increasing adoption of AI. What are you most looking forward to for the next 5 years in regards to Hive Digital Technologies? What should people be paying attention to? What should the things that what should be the clues? What should be some things that they're excited about?
Well, Paraguay is classic that it's going to take us from 6 to about 15 exahash. We will double our footprint from expanding, and we're under construction now to build our data center by the summer. And by having new machines coming in every month, we're upgrading our suite so they're more energy efficient. The older machines get set aside, they'll be able to go off to a Paraguay. The more efficient energy machines, they'll be deployed, and that will take us up to about 15 exahash in the summer. And we're seeing other opportunities come to us. So we're very excited about that due diligence process of these other opportunities. And now that we're moving to Texas, et cetera, we're going to look at our back door here. And because that's where some of the other companies have had spectacular growth has been in Texas. And now with the new regime that's taken place in Washington and Governor Abbott being so pro the industry, we feel that not only Texas, but Paraguay, we think that we can we can double again from going from 6 to 15, that we can get up to say 25. Wow. And that's our goal. And it's a big spend. On the HPC, we feel that we can get up to 100 million in revenue. Right now it's baked in to do 20 million, but that's very high profit. The margins on Bitcoin mining are not as juicy as HPC are. But we know what the paybacks are. So we always focus, can we get a 35% CAGR? What does that mean? We've used the rule of 72. Can I get my money back within 2 years? And that's always the minimum discipline, that I want a 35% CAGR, non-borrowed, just straight capital, and that is a good benefit for the shareholders. It's hard to get that in the stock market on a consistent year-in-year basis, but we see that in these other facilities that we're building out in.
Yeah, I mean, 35%. I mean, what a good return in the stock market is 8%, right? Maybe 8 to 10%. So 35%. Yeah, it's more than that's just like a 2 or 3x. Also, the jump from 6 exahashes. People in the chat, Opti, could you pull up that chat? Someone was with a mind exploding emoji. The jump from a 6 exahash to 15 exahash is a huge jump. So that's incredibly exciting. Guys, you can find the ticker on NASDAQ, HIVE. You're listening to Frank Holmes, the executive chairman of Hive Digital Technologies. I'm your host for today, Nico Moran.
You won a hat. And you write in to Nathan Fox, you can put his email up there. We'll get you some swag. The people call it the Gucci Bee, and so just send it to Nathan Fast, and we'll make sure that he gets your contact information to mail you off a hat.
Absolutely. We're going to put it down in the ticker below. Nathan, I apologize for the flood of emails incoming like happened last time. Nathan's email is down below, Nathan@Hive Digital Technologies. Hive will send you the hat that Opti and Frank are wearing right now, so you guys could see the email on the screen right now. And I also put it in the video/podcast description. I want to thank our guest today, Frank, for joining us. Frank, it's been an honor like always. Thank you so much for joining us on Simply Bitcoin Live. We're almost on the verge of breaking 3,000 live viewers, almost broke 800 on YouTube. So I want to thank the entire audience for watching. I'm your host for today, Nico, my legendary co-host, Optimus Fields, and again, our guest for today, Frank. Guys, we're Simply Bitcoin Live, and we'll be back on Monday for a brand new episode. Have an amazing weekend, everybody. Take care.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.